Hello and welcome to the Bad Psychics, episode 13 or 14, depending on what Z's scheduling is like. I am your host, not Z, Malteser Falcon. I'm joined by American man, the man who is most like to not know where most of these countries are on the map, Coach Jeter, uh, and the man who's most likely to have not touched a football, Bad Lip Z. How are you both doing?
I'm good. I'm amused by the fact that of the two of us, Z is certainly the person who could not pick out these countries on a map.
Very, very accurate. Geography is a renowned weakness of mine. But I just say it's very unusual to A, be here and not hosting, but B, it's very on brand for us to have our first episode about women's sport with no women.
Yeah, classic. We were gonna have Eloise on, but she's not here for some personal reasons. You might see her predictions in some of the review episodes, where she'll probably smash us because I think she actually knows stuff about women's football. At least more than we do. Um, anyway, speaking of women's football, well, this is for the Euros 2025, which is coming up starting the start of July, in the wonderful land of Switzerland. Um, and without further ado, let's jump onto the sheet. So we're going to predict the two teams who qualify from each group, 2 points for each correct, the losing semi-finalists, and the losing finalists. So 5 points for each losing semi-finalist, and 10 points for the losing finalist, and also the winner. So without further ado, let's have a look at who we predicted to go from Group A. Should magically undo now. Bit of a mix. Me and Jeter have gone for both Iceland and Norway, whereas Z is the only different one and has gone for the host Switzerland as well as Norway. Any particular reason for choosing Switzerland over Iceland, Z? Or is it just host advantage?
It's mainly host advantage. Like I do, I f- I feel like overall this is probably the weakest group.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think Switzerland have been given a friendly chance to get through.
Hmm.
And then yeah, it did come down to did I think Norway or Iceland would get through, and as much as I think Iceland did better in the qualifiers, I think Norway have a bit more pedigree. They've won the competition twice before,
Hmm.
so it was those two for me. But it was definitely two from those three, in my opinion.
Okay, so Jeter, why are you backing Iceland over Switzerland? Are you a fan of the frozen
Um,
food?
yeah, I don't know. I kind of looked at it, and with Iceland being a pot two team, and also just generally, I feel like their form has been fine recently. They've got a couple okay results in the qualifying, and then in recent results and stuff they've been passable, especially playing Norway and Switzerland
Hmm.
somewhat recently, and have kind of held their own in all of them. They in fact drew all of those matches, but
Yeah.
I think it's I just kind of looked at it and I went, I don't feel super confident, but I don't really want to back a host
Hmm.
nation just because they're the host nation, especially considering Switzerland's the women's Swiss team's rank was just a little bit lower. It was just kind of a case of like it almost felt like there were two teams from pot four, so the other two teams would go through by default.
Yeah. Makes sense. I'm sort of in a similar boat to you. I did see that all like three of the four teams were in the same Nations League group, and no, well, Iceland did the second best out of those teams. Finland is like sort of in the League B pot four sort of area, so I don't think they'll do much. So yeah, Norway and Iceland's just kind of the default one. Not sure either of these will go massively far. They might get like past the next round in my head, but I guess we'll see what everyone else predicted. Um, So no one's back in Finland then, I'm guessing. There's no one thinking that the next, I don't know, uh, Mika Hakkinen. Why say Mika Hakkinen? He's a Formula One driver. Yeah, so the next Mika Hakkinen is going to appear in the Finnish women's football team. Anyway, right, let's move on to Group B to avoid the. I was thinking, why did I mix up Mika Hakkinen and Jari Litterman in my
don't
head?
know.
I don't know. They are.
I thought you were trying to remember Mikhail Forsell, maybe.
Like, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to Group B. Where we've all gone for the same thing. Spain and Italy. So the other two teams in the group are, if I get up, Belgium and Portugal. A group which in the men's game would be quite a tough group because they're all very good. But there is a bit more of a spread out in the women's game. I'll jump over to you, Gita, first. Why Spain and Italy?
Yeah, to be honest, a lot of it was looking at the recent form of the other teams, and Portugal have lost all of their last four and are like collapsing in the rankings, and Belgium aren't exactly filling me with confidence considering one of those wins was against Portugal. And I think Spain especially are favorites to win the tournament, and I think the Italian team is probably going to end up being a cut above the others in the group. I wouldn't be surprised if this group is carnage, because I do think it's, as you've said, four nations with kind of some footballing heritage. Certainly much more so than Group A, at least in the men's side. So, obviously the two sports are different, but it is, the sports are much more popular in some of these nations, and you might see some chaos as, women's football continues to grow. But I'm not expecting. I'm certainly expecting Spain to win the group, and I think Italy should get through relatively comfortably.
Makes sense. So Z, you are also predicting Italy to kind of break a bit of a bad streak they've been in the recent women's Euros and get out the groups. Is it just because of the strength of the other two teams, or are you sort of predicting a bit more of an Italian renaissance, such?
I mean, I think Italy should do all right. I mean, I definitely think Spain are the strongest team in that group. I did give a little bit of consideration to Belgium. I think they're probably the more likely of the two. I mean, Portugal came through the playoff, but the first round of their playoff was against Azerbaijan, and then they snuck through against the Czech Republic, who, to the best of my knowledge, are not exactly
world beaters. Yeah.
Yes, of that higher pedigree themselves. So yeah, for me, this was probably the one I spent the least time thinking about. It feels pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, makes sense. So on to Group C, where we're going for a bit more of a mixture than usual. So me and Z have gone for both Sweden and Germany. As Gita's moved Sweden entirely and gone for Germany and Denmark. So I'll head over to you again, Gita. Why Denmark over Sweden? One of the teams that have had the most sort of international success as a women's football team.
Yeah, no, to be honest, this one was just kind of a gut call. I don't know what was kind of inspiring the decision, but I looked at it, and I just I think Germany are very highly tipped to do very well, and evidenced by the fact that all three of us have them. And I just kind of, this one was a little bit more of a judgment call. I could be very wrong, considering a few weeks ago Sweden played Denmark and beat them 6-1. But I'm choosing to ignore that, and this is definitely one that I could get wrong, but I just kind of thought it'd be fun to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. And Z, I assume there's no love for Poland on your end then?
Yeah, no, I think Poland are definitely I was going to say whipping boys, but I suppose whipping girls doesn't sound quite
No.
right. But I yeah, for me, I think Sweden were part of a very tough qualification group. They had France and England there.
Mm.
They only lost by a goal in both their matches against France, against England. They got 2 draws. And then in the playoffs, they just like went on a tear, beat Luxembourg 12-0, and then beat Serbia 8-0. I think that the fact they came through the playoff is not representative of their true ability.
Yeah.
Like I do agree, Denmark are in the mix. They're probably third. But as Gita said, very recent history suggests that Sweden are a stronger team than Denmark. But you know, Gita fancied the risk, and
Yeah.
I didn't.
That's yeah. With it being Poland's debut in the competition, yeah, I can't really see them getting very far, sadly. Although as much as I'd like them to get somewhere, but it's they kind of been drawn to probably a bit of a group of death in inverted commas in a sense. Maybe not the group of death in this one. But which we'll move on to next.
Yeah, the one other thing is it is Poland's debut, which I think is
He just said
oh, sorry, I missed that. I was trying to pull up and confirm that. That's my bad.
Yeah.
I knew that there was a debutante, and I thought it was Poland, and I was trying to pull it up, and I think in trying to pull it up, I spaced out. My bad.
Yeah.
That's...
I mean, there's 2 debutantes, so
Yes.
you didn't even get that right.
Well, you know.
Anyway, speaking of debutantes, the last group also contains one, and we have chosen quite a mixture. Okay, so Group D, I think we've got one of us at least. We've at least got all the teams going through at least one of them. Gita, England and France, probably one of the safest options out there based on how it went last time. Any more thought on that? Is it just going to be a battle between the top 3 teams, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think looking at it, I'd already taken a risk with Denmark as opposed to Sweden. And while I think that the Netherlands are a very good team, and it was a tricky one to call, I decided to trust my gut and go with France and England. It was just kind of a, I think to a degree it was just a choice of like, where do I who do I think can succeed, and I looked a little bit at like the order in which they're playing each other.
Yeah.
But once again, it was kind of just like a gut call.
Yeah, makes sense. And Z, you have kind of gone the opposite way and just got rid of England entirely. I know there's been quite a few retirements from the squad, kind of shock retirements in inverted commas. Do you think that's sort of going to disrupt the flow enough to not see them go through?
Yeah, I mean, arguably the flow had already been disrupted recently. I don't think England's recent form is certainly quite to the standard that they would have expected coming into this tournament as defending champions. For me, it just kind of came down to the fact that France got the better of them in their qualification group. And then Netherlands were in the most difficult qualification group. Like all 4 teams from their Group A group either qualified or went through the playoffs and then qualified.
Yeah.
It was Italy, Netherlands, Norway, and Finland. And like that was a group of death, and they only lost one match.
Yeah.
So I feel like they were champions in 2017. I just think it would also be very England-like generally to go from winning a competition to going out in the first round.
Yeah, very much following in the men's team's footsteps, that's for sure. So I can see your point. I can definitely see why you do that there. I've gone for the complete opposite, and I don't know. I think this is partially hopium on my part. I know they've done a lot of retirements have probably disrupted England's flow, but I don't know. The women's team do actually tend to have a reasonably good record in these sorts of tournaments, at least getting through the group stage into reasonably far into the knockouts. And Wales, I'm biased. I want Wales to go through, so I'm gonna pick Wales, even though they're up against like three of the better teams in Europe. They did hold out okay against some good teams like Sweden, the Nations League group this year. They finished bottom, but they didn't get completely destroyed. So it does give me a bit more hope that they can maybe sneak a win and just about sneak through, whereas the others kind of just cancel each other out. But yeah, I am taking the risk because similar to G's with the Denmark one. But yeah, it's hopefully it didn't come to bite me back on the ass later on. So on from the groups, onto the knockout stages, and the losing semi-finalists will be to us. And quite a mixture. G has gone for two different nations to both of us, England and Italy. Is this just how the groups fell for you, or is this kind of again roughly some gut feeling?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys did the same, but I put my like predicted order of the groups in my groups. For example, like Iceland, then Norway, so that I could actually try and work out who was then going to play who, so that I couldn't go. I would have felt really stupid if I was sat here and made predictions and then predicted two people to go out in the semifinals, and I'd predicted them to be on the same side of the
Yeah.
in the same semifinal. So when I looked at it and kind of like did the draw, so to speak, I kind of thought that, just kind of based on how it would shake out, that these were kind of the most likely ones. And yeah, I don't think England will go, back to back. And I think that the team that finishes second in Group B, is in a really, really rough spot.
Yeah.
Because once you get to the team that finishes runner up in Group D, or so in Group B, has to face or what was it? Yeah, sorry. The runner up in Group B then will eventually in the semifinals have to face the winner of Group C.
Yeah.
Which I think is very likely to be Germany, and I think that's a really rough match. Even if they then on the flip side, I thought that, kind of looking at it, the winner of Group B being Spain, it'd be a really rough match for kind of whoever came out of Group D. And for me, that was England. So that's kind of how I got there, yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. And Z, so Norway and France. Any particular reason why those two get to semi-finals over whoever they are facing?
Yeah, I mean, without revealing finalist and winner picks, I did similar to Jeter. I tried to work out who was in which side. For me, I think Norway win Group A. I think they're likely to play Italy in the quarterfinals. I like I will say that's not necessarily the absolute strongest matchup that you could get in the quarterfinals, but I do think Norway could come through it, but will very much struggle in the semis. And then my flip side, very similarly, is that I think France will most likely end up playing Sweden. I think that's actually a really, really tough match to call. So it's the one I'm less confident about. But I do think that most likely whoever comes through that quarterfinal will struggle. So
yeah, makes sense. I have sort of done something to over you guys again with the plotting out the groups to make sure I didn't make any silly mistakes. I do think the sort of the top half of the draw, but at least based on how I predict it, will be not the strongest, and pretty much the person who wins Group C should have a easy passage to the final in inverted commas. Um, so yeah, Norway's just the ones who beat Italy. I do think that game is probably going to be relatively close. Like they're sort of roughly in the same place in the rankings, and although Italy have not had the best of luck at the Euros, they have been improving. So I could easily see either of them winning. And yeah, Spain will beat Iceland pretty comfortably, and then we'll get knocked out by mystery other semi-finalist. Um, yeah, I don't see England beating Germany in my scenario either. I think there's the sort of the small sort of the lack of any sort of flow will disrupt them at that point because they're facing someone really good. But anyway, that is points anyway. So let us move on to the losing finalist. So again, all different. I'll go to Z first this time. Sorry. Spain as your losing finalist.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spain obviously were ranked number one at the moment. I think that they were impressive in the qualification group. Only lost one game. Like my one of my question marks is I'm not exactly sure the reason behind it. And obviously there were big news stories around her, sort of in the last couple of years. But Spain haven't picked Jenny Hermoso for their
Okay.
squad, and I'm a little confused about that because she played in the qualifiers. She scored 3 goals, was the joint highest
Yeah.
scorer for Spain. And so I kind of looked at it and I went, well, I think they're one of the two best teams, but I also don't think they're at their strongest because they've made this decision for reasons I'm not sure of. So I think that could end up being the reason they come up just short.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I was a bit surprised about that as well. Though, like you'd think with the whole controversy that happened last was it the Women's World Cup? I
Yeah.
think she would have just stopped entirely, but then she kept going, and then she just wasn't picked, which. I don't know. I'm hoping it's not any political meddling from further up anyway. Um, so Jita, Germany for your runner-up.
Yeah, part of it was just kind of looking at the draw, and I know that this is a little bit out there because Germany's obviously been so dominant in this competition, although not having won it in 2017 or 2022. But like historically, they have been a very, very dominant, um, team in this competition, and they're very good, very talented. I just kind of it was a bit of a flip of the coin, and I just kind of went, I don't know, I'm gonna choose to um, go the other way based on who I have left. I think to your point, the winner of Group C has an easier path to the finals, which could mean that they're more rested. And I could see that logic as to why some people might have them as their winner. But I just kind of thought that my winner that is soon to be revealed um, will edge it out. I don't know.
Makes sense, makes sense. So in a similar vein to you, Sweden won Group C. They have a relatively easy qualifying against Wales. No offense to Wales, but although I managed to make them go through, I don't think they'll beat Sweden. And then against Norway, probably one of the lowest ranked group winners, or Italy, I guess. Even if both of them, they have a good chance of beating them, and they'll just sort of get through to the final with a sort of an easiest path, really. But they'll come up short because I don't know, kind of like the England effect in the World Cup, where they can get relatively easy draws and then eventually find a team who can actually beat them. Speaking of teams who beat them, The winners of the Women's Euros, as predicted by us three white men, are. So we've actually gone for the same nation. That's a rarity. So Jeter, you're the only one who's gone different from both of us. Spain.
Yeah, I just think that they're really good. Hermosa or not, I think the point that you guys made is real, and it could be kind of a dark cloud over it. But also, it was discussed that this was not for anything other than sports reasons, and they've been playing very very good football recently. They've been pretty comfortable all recently, and I have no I have no reservations about picking them. I think that it would be very realistic for them to be picked, and the bookies also agree they're the betting favorites right now. So
makes sense. So Z, you let me have gone for Germany. Simply just the edge over Spain on the Hermosa front. Would you say?
I mean, it's slightly that, but like they had very very similar records in the qualifiers. Both of them had one shock loss. Spain's was to the Czech Republic. Germany's was to Iceland. So they both ended up with only one loss from their qualifiers. I think the difference for me is firepower. I think, like I said, Hermosa missing is a big thing, but also in the qualifiers, Germany had the top goal scorer, they had the joint second top goal scorer, and they had the joint fourth top goal scorer in Leah Schuler, Clara Boule, and Julia Gwynn. And I just tend to feel like, especially in women's football, where I think often it's more about how many goals can you score than defense for me, compared to some of the men's championships. I just feel like that gives them the edge.
Makes sense. So yeah, similar reasons to me. Germany just have like two of the best players in Europe, basically, in their squad, and that should see them through a lot of the games. The toughest one would be the Spain semi-final one, which is replica of your finals. But yeah, this does end up being a rematch of Group C, which I've didn't really notice until now, and you do tend to get that whoever comes runner up in them does tend to win the final. I found, at least in Football Manager. So I'm going to apply the same principle here and just assume Germany's going to win. I do think again the Spain semi-final could be close, and if Spain win that, they would more likely win the tournament in this alternate universe for my prediction. But that's everyone's team's winners done, and now it's time for the random section. Ooh.
spicy.
Spicy. Okay.
You sounded like some sort of like late night DJ on a like cheap radio station.
So
What's the request here?
We need like a background jingle.
Some company advertising double glazing.
We need to have one of them things that pop up on Twitter when they're like the 1092 Rock FM where we play rock and only rock. And then Imagine Dragons starts playing. So we are back, and we have the miscellaneous random section of Gulf where we predict teams that are not the winners or qualifiers from the group. So first off, so this is going to be similar to other football tournaments, sadly. So we're going to have the total number of goals. I believe the closest gets 5 points, second closest gets 2 points. If you get it exactly, you get 10 points. So let's see what people have predicted. Okay, there's a bit more of a range than I thought. So me and Z have sort of gone for around about the mid to high 90s. whereas you've gone a bit lower to 86. Is there any overly explainable reason why you do that?
Yeah, I did math. Assuming I did my math correctly, there's 31 matches in this tournament, um, and I picked an average of 2.75 goals per match.
Okay.
I think in general, the way that I got there is I know that there will probably be a couple
Mm.
big drubbings, but I also think with the growth of the women's game, there could be a bunch of 1-0s,
Yeah.
1-1s, 2-1s. And I'm, thinking if we have a couple defensive affairs,
Yeah.
It'll kind of
Jog it down.
even out on the belters. And I think especially with Group A being what it is, I think that there's a chance that you get a couple 0-0s.
Mm.
And those will do just as much to your average as you'll see with the with the super scoring, with the high scoring.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got my math.
On the opposite end, nearly 100 goalsy. Any reason why you didn't go for 100?
So I did something incredibly technical, which was that I looked at roughly how many goals I thought there would be, and then I picked a number I liked, and I like the number 99.
I would not expect anything different from you. We're not expecting anything different. So mine was, I guess, in the middle of your two. I looked up how many goals there were in the last Women's Euros. It was 95. I just did the same number again. I am thinking maybe I could have gone a bit lower on the lines of Jeter. There'll probably be a bit more defensive sort of stability in this one, just because of how women's football has developed. But I still think there are enough weaker teams in this where there could be a couple of like absolute batterings that could bring them up to the rough averages, the same like averages last time. Yeah, anyway, more numbers with how many yellow cards there will be. This is similar again. Closest gets 5. Second closest gets 2, and then exactly gets you 10 points. So there we are. Oh, I have gone much lower than both of you. Zia's also gone for 99 again. Is it because you like the number 99?
Yes, I mean, it was like vaguely in the realms. I sort of went, this is the range I expect the answer to be within. What's my favorite number out of those? Well, it's 99.
Okay.
Everybody, bear in mind, this is the guy who organizes this entire game show.
And again,
our like loyal leader.
Yes.
They're called bad psychics for a reason. Like, don't.
That is true. We shouldn't flatter ourselves. So GT, you've gone a margin lower, but for 90, more cars and goals.
Yeah, I took my first number and I was gonna do the math again, and I was like, you know what? I actually think that like a little bit more than 2.75 feels about right. I think that there could be a couple matches where there's 5 or 6. I think that there could be a couple matches where things are relatively neat and tidy. I'm probably a bit under if I'm being honest, but I'm hoping that everyone has a good fair tournament, and averages just over 2.75, and then I'll look like a genius.
Yes. So I have gone for this number. I didn't no particular reason other than I guess I kind of like the number 77. But this is around about. This is more in line with what I expect for women's tournaments in terms of cards. They do tend to be more disciplined in inverted commas. I think the women's Euros last time only got like 75, 70, 72. And in general, you do tend to see less cards for niggly tackles, fouling, etc. So, whereas I do think now a bit more this time, just because they kind of tend to adapt tactics from the men's game if they can, or sort of, which could act and get them a few more yellow cards. I still think it'll be around about the 77 mark or 80 odd mark. And also I got a bit of leeway because I'm well below both of you guys. Keeping on cards, we have the red cards. Okay. So same scoring as last time. 5 points are closest. Second closest gets 2, and exactly gets you 10 points. Why have you gone for 8 yet red cards, Jeter? That's quite a lot.
To be honest, I think I meant to hit 5, and I think I hit the wrong number on my numpad, but I'll stick with 8. It's fine.
Do you think it's gonna be Matt's?
Giving us a hard time, and you can't
Oh,
even press a number right.
I was expecting it to be because I was filling this out on my commute home, and I was on my phone for this part, so it was like the like the numpad as opposed to like a side to side keyboard, and I think I meant to hit 5 because I was thinking around 1 in every 4 matches, but they're
Yeah. Okay. So
In every 4 matches would
sorry,
be 8.
one. Oh, then I got what I want. I don't know. It was a long work day yesterday.
So do you
Maybe I did actually intend to do 8. I don't know. I've had a long couple of days since I made these predictions. I did intend for it to be around 1 in every 4 matches.
Okay. So I guess you're predicting some form of mass punch up in one of the games to average out. I'm guessing. I mean, that could be quite funny. You don't see that often.
You do have a group with England and France and Wales.
That is true.
It could get testy.
Yeah. And there is Poland. We don't. They could just be massively undisciplined and batter people for all we know. So Z, opposite end of the scale, you've gone for the lowest of 2. Again, just a number, or
I mean, I think when you're dealing with smaller numbers, I think you have to be a bit more choosy about it. I think for me, your point about the discipline levels tend to be better. I think you avoid the sort of stupid testosterone fueled punch ups that you can get in certain men's matches. And I also think that the defending tends to be like more on their feet. So like I see quite a lot of yellow cards happening for sort of people trying to stick a leg out and maybe tripping somebody. But like I don't think we're going to see like a load of high 2-footed tackles or anything.
Yeah.
Like if anything, I feel like those 2 red cards are most likely to happen from somebody mistiming a couple of tackles. I don't think there'll be loads of them. I would rather, you hadn't prices righted me with 3 so that I have to get exactly 2 or less. But
it could only be 1 or 0. So I've gone for 3 similar reasons to you in that there is less in terms of like the sort of lunging tackle when you're like 3 or 4-0 down just for desperation's sake in the women's game. And you are more likely to get it for maybe some form of careless handball or something, maybe. Which is why I've gone for. I think there was 2 last time. I've gone for 1 higher just because I don't know, there could be a bit more spice. But it'd be nice to just get some random controversial red card in the final to, I don't know, just sort of like just randomly spice it up. But yeah, I don't know. I think the lower the better in this one. I think.
Oh, I want to see lots of people get sent off. Bring out the cards. We need Mark Clattenburg.
So sadly, is he still managing? Is he still refereeing in Saudi, or is he long retired?
I don't know. To the best of my knowledge, he's just refereeing on gladiators.
Jeez, that's
and apparently he refereed Baller League as well.
Great. I'm sure the 500 quid he got for that was worth it.
His most recent role, he spent 3 months with Nottingham Forest as their club's referee analyst.
Yes, I've forgotten about that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's definitely going to be very near then. Oh god, it's a bit of a bit of an interesting turn of career, I must say.
I don't know that anybody loves the sound of their own voice more than Mark Clattenburg. Like
I'm on VAR.
I genuinely think he is the sort of person who looks in a mirror and starts masturbating.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I do not want to imagine the sight of Mark Clattenburg giving it the five knuckle shuffle, to be honest.
Yes.
I think we've got our episode title.
Yes. Mark Clattening his Burg.
On an episode of women's football, no less.
Yeah. Good classic. I mean, again, I suppose that's what you get for having three white men talk about it. Anyway, let's move back to hopefully something less wanky. The top scorer of the Women's Euros will be, me and Z both gone for Schuller from Germany, whereas Jeter's gone for Russo from England. Jeter, any particular reason why you've gone for Russo?
Russo scores goals. I don't know. It's very simple. She just bags goals. And I think England I hate to say this with you here, but I do think that there might be some goals scored against Wales. So I wanted to have someone who played Wales in the group stage. Because I think that if there's a team that's going to ship a few, it might be Wales. So I chose someone who would be guaranteed to play them. And I thought Russo of the group, even a hat trick there, and then one or two in other matches, and that could be enough.
Makes sense. And Z, Schuller, you've got Germany to win, so is she going to be the tallies woman, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think when you're predicting that the team that wins is also very likely to score the most goals. So it came down to Schuller or Bull, and I literally based it on the fact that Schindler seems to have had a better domestic season for Bayern, and is scoring 1 in 2 instead of 1 in 3. So
yeah, I was in the same boat with this. Sort of similar crossover with both of you. Schiller has had a good season at Bayern, so hopefully she can carry that form over. And Germany have Poland in their group. They might snack them by more than 6 or 7 goals. Schiller could score 4, and then she'll be pretty comfortably ahead of everyone if she keep up the scoring in even 1 or 2 in the knockouts. So yeah, I think it's a sensible choice. Player of the tournament will be okay, yeah, some different choices. I've gone for Bull from Germany, Mariona for Z, and Bonmassi for Jeter. Z, Mariona.
Yeah. I mean, my logic was that obviously I've picked a Germany-Spain final. I think quite a lot of the time they don't give the player of the tournament to the person who gets top scorer, so I think that takes Schiller out. And I do think a lot of the time it can be used as a bit of a pity card, for lack of a better term, that they tend to give it to a player from the runner-ups squad. For me, Mariona will probably score a couple. I think she'll definitely set up a few. I think sort of all round creatively, she will probably be Spain's most active player, and so put all those factors together, and you end up with her as an answer.
Okay. And Jeter, Bonmassi, is that a similar sort of idea for you, where she'll just do a load of assists?
Yeah, I tried not to overthink it. She's won the Ballon d'Or both of the last 2 years. I predicted her team to win. I kind of went, well, she's probably the best player on the team that I've predicted to win. I should probably pick her to be the player of the tournament if I expect them to win the tournament.
Yeah. Sensible. So I've kind of stuck with the domestic form for the player of the tournament. Bull got a absolute crap ton of assists in the Frauen Bundesliga. And assists generally tend to win player of the tournament, being the creative force. So I've gone for her, even though as he says, it is 2 players from the same team. That isn't too common. But I suppose if Germany come run up, then I do have a bit of an out. In case that happens. So, based on everyone's predictions and the fact that Jeter said a certain team is going to get battered, I'm going to presume the worst goal difference is going to be your two is going to be different from mine. And sadly it is, yes. So you both have gone for Wales, and I've gone for Poland. I'll start with me. I've gone for Poland because they're the debutant, and I've gone for pick Wales to go through because bias. As I said, they can get battered by Germany and Sweden pretty reasonably. So that'll knock down their goal difference by quite a lot. Jeter, Wales. Is there any reason why you're disrespecting the Red Dragons?
It's really just a case of they're in a group of death. They're debutantes. They're against three very good teams. I think Wales are a good side. The three sides that they will have to play are better than them, and I expect that class will come through.
Okay. And Z, did you think about anyone else other than Wales while predicting this?
I did consider Poland. I think it will be one of the two. Just for me, Wales obviously weren't even in the Group A sections before the playoffs, and then in the playoffs they needed extra time to beat Slovakia by a goal.
Yeah,
they beat Republic of Ireland by a goal over two legs, and I'm just kind of going, if they're not scoring that many against teams that are definitely worse than the ones they'll be facing in this tournament, and I expect them to concede, then yeah, I think all three of those teams are very capable of capturing them. Whereas I feel at least with Poland, I think they have more chance to keep a couple of those games close. But...
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. And I guess on the subject of batterings, 5+ goal wins. I think there was 3 in the last Euros. So I've stuck with 3. Z gone for 2, Gita's gone for 1. All very low numbers. Gita, do you think it's going to be a bit closer than some of the other tournaments, just again, improvements in women's football?
Yes. Also, I decided to not hedge my bets on a lot of my predictions in this tournament. In previous bad psychics episodes, I've hedged a little bit, and I've decided to trust my gut. I've said that there's going to be low goals. If that's the case, I really can't have many 5-goal drubbings. That would make the math a little bit harder for me.
So Z, any particular choice for 2, or is it just a low number?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Group A and B are well matched enough that I don't expect to see any there. I think C and D there will probably be a couple, and I also gave consideration to the fact that it's a victory by more than 5 goals. It's not scoring 5 goals, So I could see a game being 6-2, something like that, and
Makes sense.
not counting for that. I do think there will be goals in this tournament, unlike G-Tag. But yeah, I think there probably won't be too many scores of that ilk.
Okay. And let's move on to the average attendance. I believe for the last Women's Euros it was around about 18k, although we do need to consider we do have smaller stadiums this time around. We don't have Wembley and Old Trafford, which have like 60-odd thousand, sort of pushing up the average a bit. Kind of more in around the 35 to 10,000 range for these stadiums. So let's see what numbers we predicted. I believe this one is if you get it within 1,000, you have 5 points, and if you are within 250, you get 15 points. Z and Gita have kind of gone for roughly the same sort of area. Z's gone for 15,604, Gita's gone for 15,500 flat. I guess either of you two, any particular choice why it's slightly lower than mine? Is it just sort of like a rough capacity number based on the average, or is it just picked out in it?
No, I went down a calculation route for this one. It wasn't especially scientific, but so what I did was I added up the capacities of all the stadiums to work out like what the average stadium size was. And then I felt like a lot of the group matches I feel would probably be like 60% full, maybe. And then I think the latter stages will probably be more well received. So I decided on probably 70% capacity for the tournament. And yeah, so 70% average attendance at an average stadium ends up as 15,604.
Makes sense. Jeter, you have a round
Yeah,
number.
I did the really hard math of I took the 18,544 from last year, and I went Switzerland's a little bit smaller. There's some more passion for the women's game in England. I'm gonna chuck it down 3,000 and round it to a nice number that I like.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, my number was basically, I don't know, it seemed right. I just put it out in there and was like, that makes sense based on the rough capacities. I think it's a bit more sort of central to quite a few of the teams compared to the England one. So there might be some more travelling fans as such, but as you say, there's going to be less. There's going to be less space for say neutral fans to come in and watch, and say, might be some less home fans. So I'll probably average out a bit lower, but I'm maybe expecting a bit more sort of travelling support. Plus, as you know, the women's game has grown in popularity. They might be able to pack out stadiums a bit more than it did for the England Euros on average. Um, so, and I just put a one on the end just because to make it not look round basically. Yeah, and another complete guess and another favourite of this podcast is the final referee. Um, so fortunately, there is actually a list of the referees who are actually going to be doing this Euro. So we'd have a list to choose from. Let's see what everyone's picked. These are some names, all right. So the Alves Batista. This is the Brazilian one.
Yes.
And that's probably the reason why he chose her. I'm guessing because she's not European.
Yeah, well, yes. My logic was she's the only non-European named this time. Last time she was one of two non-Europeans named. The other was an American whose name escapes me right now. But the American ended up refereeing the final. So to me, I kind of went, well, she's obviously a very respected recipe, very respected referee, and I kind of feel like maybe they think that they can basically guarantee that she'll be impartial. I think the fact that they've brought two assistant referees from Brazil as well, um, I looked at the countries where there were also two assistant referees
Hmm.
because I think that quite often for a final like that, they like to have a team that knows each other and
Yeah.
communicates. And so I kind of went the Portuguese ones don't seem as well known. The Swiss ones, I feel like that might be an unusual choice for a home tournament. And the Spanish ones, I think they're very likely to be in the final and not be suitable. So, on both bases,
Yeah.
my usual applying logic to the weirdest question, I've gone for Edina Alves Batista.
Okay. Makes sense. So GT, you gone for Grundbacher from Switzerland. Is this kind of the opposite reason to see it's a home nation and they don't like to get to the final, basically?
Yeah, it was kind of the thought of like one, I'm not expecting Switzerland to be in the final, although I'd be
Hmm.
really impressed if Brazil was. Um, uh, but I was not expecting Switzerland to make it to the final, and I don't know if this is actually the case. I haven't like ever studied it. I've never looked at this other than when I filled out my prediction, but I kind of went, it'd be interesting if the referee was from the host nation. I don't know if that's something that does or doesn't happen. But I went, that'd be kind of an interesting quirk. They have the ability to do that, as you said, with the assistant referees as well. Maybe they'll throw a bone to Switzerland as like a thank you for a great tournament. You can have Swiss referees at this match. And we do know the Swiss love being impartial.
Yep. No, it's true. So I have gone for Katalin Kuchar from Hungary, just because Hungary aren't in the tournament. They're guaranteed not to be in the final. She's refereed a few high-profile Women's Champions League finals before, so no reason not to give her a shot, I guess. Like most refereeing questions, I don't put much thought into it other than I just pick one that has an interesting nationality. And yeah, Hungary. Yay. Right. So, bonus time. I think, do we normally just do it reveal one by one, don't we, see?
You can do it however you like as
Okay.
host.
Okay, I'll reveal it one by. Let's not do that. That's just not ruin everything. I'll try and do it one by one this time. So,
I've put mine into 2 boxes so that it fits.
yeah, I've done the same as well. So I'm just gonna ignore that. Oh, okay, just do it. But why did I do it that way again? Fuck's sake. I meant to start from the left-hand side, so you can have a moan at me. Okay. There we go. Okay. And now it's sorry, a little clap. And now it's time for our final bonus question, which is where you just predict whatever you want. And if it happens, the 2 other sidekicks will give you a points total, and we can pick from a high offer and a low offer. And if obviously it doesn't happen, you also get penalised. So choose wisely. Let's start off with my bonus prediction, which is they all just show up anyway. A game gets delayed for 30+ minutes. Simple reason of that this happens, and it's rare enough that it's there's my thinking was weather delays. Could just be a random thunderstorm that comes over and just wrecks people's day for half an hour or so. I mean, we've seen enough at the Club World Cup where they've just decided to stop play for yolks, for that, and everyone's being safety conscious. There could also be an injury, but I don't really want to see that, of course. But that could happen. And yeah, it could be anything. There could be crowd congestion that delays the people getting in, and like the Champions League final in France that had a load of incidents around it. So it is possible, but I think it's rare enough. I don't think didn't happen last year anyway. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Do so what you reckon?
I think it seems feasible, but I wouldn't go likely. Like I'd say if I were to put like a line in the middle of like 50-50, I'd probably lean no, but I don't think it's like far off the realm of possibility. There's a whole host of reasons why a match could get delayed, but a 30-minute delay is notable. I do have a clarifying question because I've been caught in situations where we haven't clarified things.
Okay.
Are we saying once the match is kicked off?
No.
Or a 30-minute delay prior, if kickoff time is set for 7?
My thinking was for both, so you can have kickoff delayed by 30 minutes as well.
Okay.
Just any general delay that occurs.
I think that clarification, which I haven't thought of, so good job, Chieftain. I think that clarification actually makes it slightly more likely, just because you have things like traffic issues for fans getting them to the stadiums. I think after some fan troubles in recent tournaments, they probably would want to make sure everybody gets through securely. I'm trying to think of all the reasons that something might get delayed. I think crowd health issues, they generally don't take half an hour to
Yeah.
resolve.
Yeah.
Player health issues, I think, is less likely in the
The women's
women's
game, yeah.
than the men's. And weather issues, I suspect that the weather will be reasonably good. Equally, I don't think Switzerland is going to be like warm enough that you end up
Yeah.
with some kind of drought. So yeah, I think I agree with you that it's marginally on the no side of 50-50. I'd probably say something like because as always, like we tend to use 5 points as like the marker for 50-50. I think I'd say something like 6 and 6 as a high offer, or 4 and 2 for a lower offer. What do you reckon, Jason?
Yeah, those both work in my eyes. I think both are fair.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I won't be a coward. I'll go for the high offer.
Okay.
I will risk it for a biscuit. So, Aziz one, a male VAR official will be using the final, sticking with the refereeing theme I see.
Yes.
So I haven't had a look at this obviously, but just looking at the list of VAR officials that are there, I do see. I think there's a couple of men in there.
Yeah. That's a reasonable number
Out of men.
of men.
Yeah.
It looks like about half, maybe a little bit less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems right to me.
I think part of my logic was there's not a Brazilian one on the list, so I don't think we get a full Brazilian team.
Yeah.
And then I call me cynical, but it would just be so football organizing body ish to refuse to have a women's event be completely women. Like it feels like it would just be a sneaky little middle finger where they could go, well, men were involved too. You know, I maybe I'm misjudging and being harsh, but the history of UEFA and FIFA doesn't fill me with much confidence.
I'm sort of in the I sort of agree with your sake there's the but this could also be one where they, I don't know, just put a women's VAR official in. How many VAR officials do they have in the game? Is it just one?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just one.
I believe so.
So assuming it is just one, they could feasibly just make it all women. I think it is. I don't know. It is 50-50. They could sort of promote it as going. This is the first all women's officiating team for a women's Euros finals and plaster it all over social media. But at the same time, they could just not give a toss and just put a man in there. I think it's
Yeah, the one thing that I'm checking, so I've just done, I've actually done it. It's like about 60% of them are men.
Okay.
It's a little bit over 50% of the VAR officials are male.
Yeah. And
so I think thinking about it, it could go either way on whether they want to make a statement or not, or they could, deliberately try and not make a statement and choose whoever and just not make a big deal of it. I think statistically.
Sorry, just one thing that I remembered was part of my thinking process was that because I'm going down the route of thinking that the Brazilians will take charge of the final, and there isn't a Brazilian VAR official, but there is Tiago Martins, who is Portuguese. So I did think maybe they would use him to make sure there were no communication issues.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I seem to think, like, using the logic of the last one on, like, more or less likely than 50%, I think this is slightly more likely than 50% in my eyes.
I would say so. Just because of makeup of officials, really.
Yeah, I think, like, even ignoring all of the potential statement, non-statement arguments, because those could go either way, just using math, there's more men than women in the pool, so you're more likely to get a man than a woman.
Okay.
I checked the one Swiss person is a guy. Is it
Yeah.
if you're looking at the list?
Good.
So I think
Mm.
it's like 9 to 7 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
So like it's slightly above 50.
Mm.
I think my offer on a more aggressive side would probably be like maybe like 6 up, 7 down
Okay.
to get like slightly more risk than, to get the 6
Yeah.
points you have to risk a little bit more than what you did, Mel.
Yeah.
And then on kind of a more conservative side, maybe something like a 4-3.
Yeah. I'm happy with those choices, I would say.
Okay. I mean, I think for me, I was very unsure. I wasn't entirely sure what to do for my bonus, and I think, uh, given that I've been a bit too aggressive and paid for it in the results for a couple of these, I think I will take the lower offer on this one.
Okay. Boo.
Um,
Saving your bacon. And our final bonus one, Jeter, you have chosen Golden Boot to be won by more than 2 goals. I presume
yeah.
that's meant by that. I think the Golden Boot last time, I'll have a look, was won by more than 2 goals. Wow. They're two players tied for first. Presuming that does not count.
No, I'm saying someone would win it
Someone's
solo by
outright
more
by
than two
2
goals.
goals. Okay.
Outright by
Just
more than 2 goals.
and just clarifying, you are saying by more than 2 goals, not by 2 or more goals.
More than 2.
Okay.
So 3 or more.
Fine.
Which is a risk.
Hmm.
I'm basically saying that I think someone's going to run away with this.
Yeah.
Or, I'm saying that Russo's going to run away with this. So I'm really putting a lot of eggs in the basket of Wales's defense, being filled with some sheep. But I'm expecting that you're probably going to see. I think that one thing that's tough is there's a lot of people who are hinted at who could be the top goal scorer. I don't think that Spain as my winner will have a standout goal scorer. And I think that there could be people splitting goals, as you guys talked about with Germany. There's firepower there, but there might be a bunch of people who are all going for the same goals, and the wealth could be spread a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some teams like England who have one star goal scorer.
Yeah.
And if they have a good match or two, I think that this is possible. But I'm certainly not expecting it to be. I think I'm taking a risk with this one, but I think it would be fun.
Yeah, I am leaning on the side of this being pretty unlikely, just because you're playing 7 games maximum. I think the top goal scorer is going to be maybe 5 or 6. That implies that no one else is going to get more than 3 goals. And we do have a few, say, even if, say, like with Poland or Wales, there could be easily some games where like someone just gets a hat trick and gets another one later on in the group, which just ruins it really. I also don't think there's anyone who particularly could run away with it in a sense. There's no like massively standout goal scorer above every other one. So, have you got any thoughts on point C?
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't think it's particularly likely at all. I think Gita kind of touched on it that the teams who have like one focal player who might get a hatful, I think we think aren't necessarily going to make it that far into the tournament, and the ones we do think are more likely to share it around. If it was by 2 goals or more, I could.
You can see that.
I think there is a big difference between the 2 and the 3. I'm like I really think that this is unlikely,
Yeah.
and I'd be content with like 10 and 10
Okay.
for
For that
for
Heinz.
a high offer, and
Okay.
then something like 5 and 4
Okay.
for a lower.
I
Um,
I'm happy with that as well. Yeah, I do think just this. It's kind of like it's not as unlikely as my prediction that all the rookies will score points in a race in the Formula One thing, which still hasn't happened, by the way.
yes,
But I think it is. It is.
Shock.
Yes, I mean it can still happen. There's still races that can happen, but it won't happen.
yeah.
But yeah, I think this is pretty unlikely. So I'm happy to give Gito a big bonus point if this does happen. Just for sticking his neck out.
Yeah.
You happy to go with
Of those offers, I don't really see myself wanting to lose 10.
that? Mhm.
I think I've chosen something that's unlikely, and I don't, I'm interested. I think it could happen. I don't know that I want to go down 10
Yeah.
for it to happen, so I think I'm gonna take the 5-4.
Okay. Sounds good. So basically what you're saying is I'm the only non-coward in this.
Look, I've regularly been uncowardly, and for one, it hasn't worked out that well for me, and for two, it's they've usually been on things that I'm more sure of. This one I struggled. So
Mm.
when I
Yeah.
struggle, I tend to play it safe.
Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense. So that brings us to the end of the Bad Psychics episode 13/14, predicting the women's Euros. We will be back for a review episode on this after the tournament ends, so it'll probably be within I want to say August time. Yeah, so we will see you then. But for now, uh, don't be bad psychics. Don't be. I forgot. I've forgotten the outro. Anyway, bye.
Do you want me to do the outro?
What's the outro? It's don't.
The
Don't
outro
be
is
Mark Clatter. Don't be Mark Clattenburg.
is remember to always be big mystics, not big mistakes.
Okay. Remember to always be big mystics, not big mistakes. And don't be Mark Cottenberg. Bye.
Phenomenal.
Okay.